Mike's Daily Podcast.
Welcome to Cafe Anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valentino, the last place on earth. It's FFF.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
FFF episode 2651, 2651. It's Mike Matthews having some fun, but I don't think that I am the one that you want to hear sing. You want somebody else with maybe a nose ring. I don't think I'm gonna get one of those anytime soon, but I have dated
Mike's Daily Podcast.
many women who have had nose rings and are fans of Enya. That seems to be
Mike's
the
Daily
type
Podcast.
for Mike Matthews,
Yeah!
the style of girlfriend. But no, his lovely lady friend, who you'll see in the podcast picture, spoilers, she did have a nose ring, but doesn't anymore. And she does kind of like Enya, a little bit. So maybe I'll throw on an Enya record when I get home tonight from Podcastro Valley and Cafe Anyway, somewhere there, the last place on earth. You know, we were talking a little bit about, speaking of style, that is one of the songs of... what's her name? Anyway, she's doing all these concerts and it's a big tour. And she had a song that was 10 minutes long, Taylor Swift. That was supposedly, I didn't know this, it was about Jake Gyllenhaal. And it was very long. She had done an original version on the original album that was much shorter, but when she re-released the album and took back all her money, took back all her copyrights and everything, she did it the full length that she wanted it to be originally, 10 minutes. And it was the first time a song hit number one on the Billboard charts that was 10 minutes long. It was a little bit longer than American Pie by Don McLean. And here's the interesting thing. It had negligible airplay.
And here's today's podcast picture.
My lovely lady friend and I on Lake Chabot recently when I had that week off and did just a bunch of local Bay Area things. I hope Taylor Swift gets to go out to Lake Chabot today, but she probably won't because she's too popular and it's difficult for her to get out. That's sad.
Baloney.
But yes, what's interesting is about that song, you probably didn't hear it play on your favorite radio station because a lot of radio stations were like, we're not going to play a 10-minute song. What if somebody doesn't like Taylor Swift and we're playing her for 10 minutes when we could be playing some Ed Sheeran? Oh, the late great Basil the Boxer was not a big fan of Ed Sheeran's. Yeah, I thought that a lot of his stuff was trite. But that's Basil the Boxer's opinion. So it was, they didn't want the same reason why in the days of, let's say, The Doors, they had their Come On Baby Light My Fire. The original version, the album version, is very long. I forget how long exactly, like 6, 7, 8 minutes. But for radio, they chopped it down to 3.5. That seems to be the sweet spot, 3.5 minutes. In fact, Alan Jackson, speaking of country singers, and my lovely lady friend was shocked to hear that Taylor Swift started out as a country singer. That is absolute truth. If you didn't know that, wow. I'm surprised that's getting retconned. The revisionist history is happening. Yes, she started off as a country singer, and her music, I think part of the reason why it took off was she was this wonderful darling of the American country fans as she was a young lady, and she was writing her own music and doing it her own way. But also her stuff was very reminiscent of Dixie Chicks. And the Dixie Chicks, now just the Chicks, and Taylor has admitted she was a huge fan of Natalie Maines, lead singer of the Dixie Chicks. But it had a lot of banjo. Dixie Chicks music had a lot of banjo. Had a very similar sound. The reason why people, I think, see the Dixie Chicks, they were, I don't know if the term is blacklisted, which was often referred to as the communists in the Communist Party. Have you been in the Communist Party? Were you ever a member of the Communist Party? Those trials there with, was it Hoover? J. Edgar Hoover, and a lot of Hollywood directors, actors were blacklisted. Well, the Dixie Chicks were banned from the country charts because of what Natalie Maines said about George W. Bush. This was while we had just went to war with Iraq, and she said, I'm ashamed that George W. Bush is from Texas. Now, if anybody would ban the Dixie Chicks, it should be Texans. If they were, or anybody who was a big fan of George W. Bush, but of course, country music leans more conservative, and a lot of country music fans at that time were big fans of George W. Bush, and were okay with us going to war with Iraq. And so, with the Dixie Chicks agreeing with all that, they were like, what? The Dixie Chicks, they have opinions? We don't like them, ban them from the charts. The week they banned them from the charts, they really couldn't, because the Dixie Chicks went to number one that week with a song called, interestingly enough, Traveling Soldier, which is a beautiful, sad song. I think it takes place during the Vietnam War, and somebody's been drafted, and he said, I'm about to go off to this foreign land, and he says to this girl, hey, would you be my, date? They have some kind of relationship. And he goes off to war and he dies. And she finds out while they're reading off the names of Vietnam soldiers who were recently killed. And so she hears the name. It's very sad, but it was a number one hit. I remember. And I remember my program director saying, hey, it's about to play the number one song on this syndicated national top 40 country show, American Country Countdown. And my boss said, you got to take it out of the number one position. We cannot play Traveling Soldier. You got to go into, and it was sent to us on CD. So we had to record it into the computer system. And there is a way that you can go in and change that. So he had me change it to God Bless the USA by Lee Greenwood. Now, I had the chance a couple years after that to interview Lee Greenwood. I did not tell him that story. I don't know what he would have said. He's overall a very nice guy. I think if you ever met him, you'd go, hey, pretty nice fella. What a voice. And he actually does a great Donald Duck impression, but because we were doing character voices back when I was doing the Santa Fe Cafe. Oh, and if you want to hear some of the Santa Fe Cafe, go back to the last podcast. That was called Style, and it was FF episode 2650, as we go outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. So I did not know that Jake Gyllenhaal was this, according to my lovely lady friend, was the subject matter of that 10-minute song by Taylor Swift. So Taylor does have the Dixie Chicks to thank. Of course, the Dixie Chicks, when they were popular, people forget this, they did cross over to the pop charts with their cover of Fleetwood Mac's Landslide. And Stevie Nicks returned the favor by later inviting Natalie Maines to sing on one of her solo albums with her.
Life grand.
Burgermaster.
And I don't have any desire to go see Taylor Swift because I know it's going to be basically like that Dixie Chick show where I was like the only guy. The music was good. It was a great, energetic concert. But Natalie Maines, well, you went to a Dixie Chicks concert because you didn't know what she was going to say next. And it was that, oh, is she, what's good? Huh? What's me? Woo-woo. But I don't think Taylor's quite that way. So, but she'll say it in her songs. So that's cool. Oh, and the Dixie Chicks did not write their own music. Oh, yes, they did. Wait a minute. They were starting to by the album after Fly. No. Let's see. Okay. Brain cells working. Here we go. The Dixie Chicks existed before Natalie Maines with a different lead singer, but then they brought on Natalie and they came out with the first album was called Wide Open Spaces. That's right. Have Cowboy Take Me Away, Wide Open Spaces. There's Your Trouble. There was the next album after that was Fly. That was huge. Was one of the biggest selling country albums of all time at that point. They released the album with the same cover but in different colors. So people were like collecting the album. Get all 4 different versions. Which, didn't Taylor do something similar to that? Then there was the Home. It was called Home, wasn't it? That was the Bluegrass album. And that had Traveling Soldier on it. Also had Long Time Gone, great song. And their cover of Landslide, which then Sheryl Crow remixed. And that was the version that got popular on pop radio. But yeah, the third single off of that was Traveling Soldier, and that's when all the controversy hit, and that was basically their last single to make it into the top 10 or to go number 1. Then they had a great album called Taking the Long Way. No, was that one called Home? I should really use a search engine right about here.
It's Bison Bentley's. Do you know that?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that?
And they co-wrote. That's right. That was my point, is they co-wrote a lot of their songs.
Awesome.
With that album, with the guy, Danny Wilson, I think was his name. And he was the guy from Semisonic that had that song, Closing Time. Da, 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 da. Yeah, Taking the Long Way. And the album before that, I don't see Home anywhere here. But they Fly, that was huge. Let's see. But they're still, they've had to cancel a couple of shows, I heard recently. That's the latest news with them. Let's see, There's Your Trouble, Traveling Soldier, that reached number 1. That's right. So they hit number 1 with There's Your Trouble, Wide Open Spaces, You Were Mine, Cowboy Take Me Away, Without You, and Traveling Soldier.
Live and loco.
Days before the 2003 invasion of Iraq, Maines told a London audience that the Dixie Chicks did not endorse the war and were ashamed of U.S. President George W. Bush being from Texas. That's what triggered the boycotts.
Because you'd be in jail.
After a hiatus, they released the song Taking the Long Way. That was in 2006. And that had the song Not Ready to Make Nice. And I remember that was also, there was a documentary that came out with that name. And I went to the concert. The opening act was Michelle Branch, and she was just coming out with a country album. She worked with this, as a duo with another lady, and it was called The Wreckers, what they called. And they Leave the Pieces was the big song from that crossed over onto the pop charts.
Oh, Mike, you're such a creative soul.
All right.
And before the Dixie Chicks took the stage, they showed a commercial for this documentary, which you should see. It is very interesting. It is very pro-Dixie Chicks and anti-banning freedom of speech, which is what I am. I don't care.
But if you get offended, that's the way the cookie crumbles. No.
When I hear Republicans say that the Democrats are banning our freedom of speech, I'm like, yeah, that's not good. We can't ban freedom of speech. Even if I disagree with you, and even if you're spreading lies,
Danger, Will Robinson.
we can't ban freedom of speech. We got to have an open debate, and we can't shut each other down like that. But they showed a little trailer for the documentary before the concert, and sitting behind me was Laura Dern. And apparently she knew somebody that was a producer of the documentary, so she was like cheering that they were showing the trailer. And sitting next to her, now they're divorced, but her husband at the time was Ben Harper. And I had just seen him in concert.
MTV News. You hear it first.
But yes, I cannot find for the life of me the name of that album. have the... Oh, yeah, it was Home. So what's funny, so Home comes out in 2002. Taking the Long Way comes out in 2006, which was sort of a joke because you put the album titles back to back. It's Taking the Long Way Home, which the TV show Doctor Who with Peter Capaldi and Jenna Louise Coleman, and they've got that whole thing in there in the show. This phrase repeats often during the season that they were working together. I'm going home, taking the long way round. But yes, Taking the Long Way.
What in the world was that about?
And Not Ready to Make Nice, it says here, became their biggest crossover single, reaching number 4. Oh, I did not know that. On the Billboard Hot 100. Huh. And 3 years later, the two sisters, which is Emily Strayer now. I knew her as Emily, what was her name before that? Well, and Marty McGuire. And I interviewed them. Oh, yeah. If you want to go to MikesDailyPodcast.com, go to the interviews section. Look up Dixie Chicks. They dropped the Dixie from their name, citing negative connotations and releasing their first album in 14 years called Gaslighter. And that was directed towards Natalie's ex-husband, Adrian Pasdar, who was big from the TV show Heroes. Yes, so what you have there with the Dixie Chicks, and now just the Chicks, and actually that's their website, thechicks.com. And oh yeah, Robin Lynn Macy and Laura Lynch also used to be in the Dixie Chicks years before, I think before they got all popular. Oh, that's right, she was Emily Robeson. And then now she's Emily Burns Strayer. Excellent. And the Taking the Long Way album did feature songs that were co-written with... They often did songs that were written by other people, like Bruce Robeson, who was Charlie Robeson's brother, who was married to Emily Strayer. Back then, Emily Robeson. But the song, let's see, Not Ready to Make Nice was Dan Wilson. It's just Dan Wilson. Danny Wilson is a band from England that I love that had a song Mary's Prayer that was back from the 80s. What I wouldn't give to be when I was Mary's Prayer. Dan Wilson was the guy from Semisonic. Have you followed all this? He is quite a great songwriter, though.
We love you, Mike.
That's why we pay Mike the big bucks, or someone pays him.
Absolutely.
Add the extra zero.
Yeah, that's
just amazing. Okay. That's all. I think any conversation about Taylor Swift, you need to talk about the Dixie Chicks, or just the Chicks now. And anybody who's talking today, yours truly is talking. In fact, that's my handle on Twitter and Facebook is @MikeTalks. But today, if you are talking, you should mention your father-in-law, because it is National Father-in-Law Day. I do not have a father-in-law anymore. I was married, got divorced. By the way, that then wife is who I got to see a lot of these Dixie Chicks concerts with. But yes, her dad is no longer my father-in-law. Interesting guy. He kind of lives life on his own terms. And I blame all my back problems on him, because he had me help him with some projects. Ooh, boy. I still have not recovered all the way. Also, National Climb a Mountain Day. No, thank you. As long as it's a small... I'll climb a hill, but not a mountain. But, you know, if it's a molehill, just don't make a mountain out of it. And it's National Cheesecake Day. Yay! Let's hear it for cheesecake. And, let's hear it for whistleblowers, because it's National Whistleblower Today. Whistleblowers, big time in the news, complaining about, Hunter Biden not getting, he should be thrown in jail and I guess hung by the neck. I don't know what they want to do to him, but they hate him and feel there's a big cover-up going on. And that there's aliens and UFOs. So let's hear it for whistleblowers. Actually, let's hear it for the whistleblowers that actually do change the world for the good. We'll see if the current whistleblowers, the current crop of them, are doing that. History will tell. Or maybe it won't, because it's all a cover-up. Boy, didn't mean to get all conspiracy theorists there, but it seems to be that's what's going on. Here's something, though. The Associated Press has mentioned an interesting article here by Alexandra Olson. 6 straight days of 12-hour driving, single-digit paychecks. The complaints come from workers in vastly different industries. UPS delivery drivers and Hollywood actors and writers. But they point to an underlying factor driving a surge of labor unrest. The cost to workers whose jobs have changed drastically as companies scramble to meet customer expectations for speed and convenience in industries transformed by technology. Good old big tech. Hey, did you know that Meta, part of that big tech crowd, they have a data center that they have built in this part of Spain where there is drought going on. Now, a data center needs a lot of water. So guess who's not getting the water that lives in this area of drought? The people that need it. It's all going to this data center because Meta has struck a deal with Spain in order to do that. Heard about that today on Bloomberg. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated those changes, pushing retailers to shift online and intensifying the streaming competition among entertainment companies. Now, from the picket lines, workers are trying to give consumers a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to produce a show.
Mike's Daily Podcast Master Pod Beater.
Binging Luther right now. Gosh, what a dark, horrible show. I can't wait for this thing to end. Gosh, it's too intense for me. My lovely lady friend loves it. But I'm like, come on, stop it.
Right? God.
You're going into all this unnecessary drama. We get it. There's all these... So the show relied a lot on killers that were total psychos, totally just unhinged.
Right.
And it got kind of graphic, and I'm just not a big fan of those type shows. But now I'm committed. I'm in the last season. Thankfully, the British entertainment industry does not produce full 26 episode long seasons. They go for the 4, 2, 6.
First of all, I just want to thank everyone for joining us here on this show. This is great.
It's too intense for me, and I watch it before I go to bed, so I have nightmares. Not a good idea. So yes, to produce these type shows, or to get dog food delivered to your doorstep with a phone swipe, all of this requires a lot of work behind the scenes. Overworked and underpaid employees is an enduring complaint across industries, from delivery drivers to Starbucks baristas and airline pilots, where surges in consumer demand have collided with persistent labor shortages. Workers are pushing back against forced overtime, punishing schedules or company reliance on lower paid part-time or contract forces. At issue for Hollywood screenwriters and actors staging their first simultaneous strikes in 40 years is the way streaming has upended entertainment economics, slashing pay and forcing showrunners to produce content faster with smaller teams. And then you've got actors and writers have long relied on residuals or long-term payments for reruns and other airings of films and television shows, but reruns aren't a thing on streaming services, whereas series and films simply land and stay with no easy way, such as box office returns or ratings, to determine their popularity. Think about that next time you're watching something on Netflix. Oh, hey, a lot of people know about Stranger Things. Sure. And Netflix has a way of showing you how many people have watched it. But you don't see the box office returns like you do with movies. Consequently, whatever residual streaming companies do pay often amount to a pittance, and screenwriters have been sharing tales of receiving single-digit checks. My dad still gets residuals for a movie he was in years ago called, let's see, there was the one, Showdown. That one I still have not seen, with Dennis Weaver. He was also in one with John Belushi called Continental Divide. He had a very small speaking role in both movies. But occasionally, and the checks don't come every week. They come like every 3 months, maybe more. And sometimes it's for like 25 cents. And I have to go to the bank and deposit a 25-cent check. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. But that's the entertainment industry, everybody. Let's see. One other thing. How do they relate this to the UPS strike? That's basically, in a nutshell, what's going on with the entertainment world. But efforts to organize at Starbucks and Amazon stalled as both companies aggressively fought against unionization. This is talking about the delivery folks. Still, labor protests will likely gain momentum following the UPS contract, said an executive director of the Worker Institute at the School of Industrial and Labor Relations at Cornell University, which released a report this year that found that the number of labor strikes rose 52% last year. 52%, wow.
This is interesting.
Wow, this is interesting.
The whole idea that consumer convenience is above everything broke down during the pandemic. We started to think, I'm at home ordering, but there is actually a worker who has to go to the grocery store, who has to cook this for me so that I can be comfortable.
Wow.
And that, very interesting. Wanted to bring up a couple other things real quick here, and that is the bird logo.
Let's not replay that one.
Got dumped, as you will know by now, transformed to the X symbol, and that is because, and I haven't actually checked Twitter today, but Twitter is transforming to X.com. Wow.
Wrong.
And that is because of SpaceX and the whole fascination Elon Musk has with the letter X. Of course, X film industry.
Will you shut ups? Liberty Nation freedom foam for all.
I love it. It's a nightmare of a show.
The rating. But Musk has talked about X Everything app, which would combine messaging, social network, and person-to-person payments.
What?
And he's going to change the color scheme from blue to black, getting rid of the Twitter brand altogether. So he wants to incorporate everything with this X app, the person-to-person payments, e-commerce, all of it. He's replacing a globally recognized brand with a generic placeholder symbol. Warner Brothers also previously caught criticism for removing HBO from the brand of its Max streaming platform. Musk has an attachment to the 24th letter of the alphabet, his space exploration company called SpaceX, his online banking startup X.com, before it was renamed PayPal. Yes, it was called X.com before it was PayPal. He even named one of his sons XAE-A-12. That's the one with Grimes. Revenue is down 50% for Elon Musk's company and remains cash flow negative as of the second quarter. His $42 billion purchase is now worth $14 billion. So he's lost about $28 billion in value. Elon. And yes, Barbie has become the biggest movie in 2023. People dressing in pink. I was in downtown Oakland. I was in the Piedmont area, and there's an old theater there that was showing Barbie and Oppenheimer. And there was a couple sitting across the street over there. I think it's called the Grapevine, one of these cool restaurants we have in the Bay Area where they serve crepes and all kinds of delicious food. Huge portions. This isn't a plug or a slug. It is kind of expensive. I guess that's my slug. But they were sitting there with their daughter, their young daughter who is blonde, and yes, wearing pink. Lots of pink jacket, pink this, pink everything. People dressing in pink Barbie core wearing moviegoers has the potential to bump some of those retail sales numbers and marketing was insane. Oh, there's an I Am Kenough hoodie that was on sale for $27. This all found by Rob Black. I produce his podcast called Rob Black, The Rob Black Show, and Rob Black and Your Money. And he finds all this fascinating information. There's going to be a Hot Wheels movie that Mattel, who owns Barbie, is going to try and do in 2025. But to see those kind of numbers that Barbie had will probably be impossible. A lot of Barbie costumes for Halloween, they're saying, and Barbie toys for Christmas. So this will go through the rest of the year.
Wine.
Well, I like.
The Whiny White Man Wine List.
Spotify is going to increase the price of its premium subscription. You can find this podcast on Spotify. Just type in Mike's Daily Podcast, but make sure to put the apostrophe in there. That'll help you find my podcast. They're going to increase the subscription cost by $2. That translates to a 20% increase for some plans that you may have with Spotify. They've got over 2,210 million premium subscribers. And there you go. So far, power grids have been passing the heat test. California's record snowpack in the winter has given a major boost to hydropower, which is good because supposedly, and this is what I heard from my lovely lady friend as we were talking last night, and if you have a relationship with someone, if you want to have that relationship endure, you need to talk, you need to communicate, and heck, talk about the weather. Like the Mike Matthews with the Dave Matthews, that song. So much to say, so much to say. In May, hydropower produced more electricity than any month in the previous 3 years because we had so much water coming out of the mountains here in California. In renewable energy powerhouse Texas, solar capacity is more than twice the amount installed at the same point last year. So there is that. There's no evidence of a recession. That's another piece of good news. Am I referring to cats or am I referring to cows mooing? And my cat, Rocky, has been meowing a whole bunch because he got a taste for going outside at night. So we're trying to watch Luther, and it's all loud, and there's screaming because there's always a murder of some kind going on, and car chases and loud gunshot bangs and everything else. And there he is meowing loud as can be. So anyway, so far there's no evidence of a recession. And so long as there's no evidence of recession, Rob says the market will probably continue to melt up. Yes, melt up. That's a term he likes to use. I don't think it's possible. He needs to come up with something else. It's floating up. Melting up, I don't get it. But that's what he likes to say. So that's apparently year to date, the NASDAQ's been up by 35%, the S&P's been up by 18%, and the Dow up by 6%. So it's been for all the doom and gloom that Republicans like to say, to throw shade on Biden, they're starting to abandon that. Have you noticed? It's now all about how old is Biden? Oh my gosh. And then a Republican, Mitch McConnell, he froze for about 20 seconds as he was speaking last week. So it's all being called into question. How old can you actually be and still be a leader in this country? And which that sentence I just said is very ageist, but yet it's a thing that Republicans are throwing out there. Never mind the fact that they had one of the oldest presidents of all time, Ronald Reagan, before Biden, and he was a hero, and he had his moments where he was, some people were saying, does he have Alzheimer's because he can't remember anything that happened with Iran-Contra? But yes, it was. And the way he was depicted on Saturday Night Live, Robin Williams depicting him as all forgetful and, well, I don't remember. Well, there's that ageist card coming out. I don't agree with it. I think people can do amazing things the older they get. And yes, it's going to be tough for Biden. to make it back into the to win the hearts and minds of young people. That is another headline that I saw pop up today about, is it actually possible for him to reach younger voters? And you've got those that think, well, let's see. It says here, also from the Associated Press, Joe Biden, America's oldest sitting president, needs young voters to win again. Will his age matter? Voters like a 24-year-old that they cite in this article were a key piece of Biden's winning 2020 coalition, which included majorities of young people as well as college graduates, women, urban and suburban voters, Black Americans. Maintaining their support will be critical in closely contested states such as Nevada, where even small declines could prove consequential to Biden's re-election bid. His 2020 campaign plans to emphasize messages that could especially resonate with young people in the coming weeks as the anniversary of the Sweeping Inflation Reduction Act approaches in mid-August. That legislation includes provisions that the White House will embrace to argue that Biden has done more than any other president to combat climate change. So that is how they're going to try and get to that. However, those efforts could collide with Biden's personal reality, like when he recalled that while attending a St. Patrick's Day parade at age 14, he appeared in a photo with Harry Truman. Purely by accident, I assume it was accident, the photographer from the newspaper got a picture of me making eye contact with Harry Truman, is what he said. In 2020, 61% of voters under age 30 and 55% of those between 30 and 44 supported Biden. That according to AP Votecast. It's an age group with which Republicans hope to make inroads, so that's why they are questioning Biden's age and his capability to continue as president with his physical abilities and mental abilities. Donald Trump, who is the earliest frontrunner in the GOP presidential primary and is only 3.5 years younger than Biden, people forget, only 3.5 years younger, he said, "We are hitting the young person's market like nobody's ever seen before," he said. So it will be a war over age. And look who's here, speaking of age and beauty, outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valleyton, the last place on earth.
Hello, Michael Matthew. Yes, I am very old. I dated Harry Truman. Oh,
that's right. You're old, very old. Your years go beyond your ears. You know, the older you get, your ears are supposed to get bigger. Did you know that?
Yes.
Did you know that when you die, your fingernails keep growing for a while?
Yes.
Did you go see Barbie?
No.
Oh, Madame Rootabega, you need to go see her at some point in that movie and be a sheeple. And just follow the flock.
Michael Matthew, I will do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. Harry Truman was very nice. He took me out to get some ice cream. Oh!
Oh, are you in a picture with him?
No.
Okay. That was a great conversation with Madame Rootabega we just had. Wonderful. And look who else is here.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, you know what? This is something that the new slogan for Trump is going to be, hey, Biden's old. Day.
Yeah, he's old. Do you know that? That's going to be a wonderful campaign.
Hi there, Mike. How are you?
So let's see. And by the way, I was trying to look up. I know there was some president way back who lost an election, then came back and won an election. But I'm not sure who. I know Theodore Roosevelt, he stepped down. He was a Republican president. He stepped down, and then he decided he wanted to run again later, but the Republicans wouldn't let him run on the same tickets or whatever. Something happened. I have to rewatch the Ken Burns documentary. So Theodore ran with the Bull Moose Party and lost. But yes, it's a different thing altogether with Trump. It'll be very interesting. Okay, you know what? It is time now 4, it is time now for the segment, the Mike Matthews New Tunes Feud. Yes, we've got a couple of songs here. People send me songs to MikesDailyPodcast at gmail.com. And they send me their music. And this song here is by a group called New Friends. Let's see. And it says here, they said, "Hey, Mike," in the email. "We have a new song out called Sad Sugar. It's a bold and exciting alternative indie pop track that's about meeting someone that you know isn't good for you. You can't stop obsessing over them." All right. Well, we're going to hear just a little bit of it because I don't want to get dinged by YouTube for playing. Here we go. Conscience is sweet of my lemonade, 'cause every teardrop in my cup still tastes bitter. I'm in the mood for a little sad sugar. It's still so. There you go. It's a little snippet of Sad Sugar. Do you like that song? And you need to call me if you like it. Otherwise, no one's going to win, and it'll be a sad, sad day. Yes, 510-228-4640 is where you can call me. 510-228-4640 to let me know if you like that song or do you like this one. This email says, "Hello, Mike. I think in a world where self-publicity has become the biggest habit in an artist's career, we all notice the intoxicating effects of attention and fame on a person's behavior and choices. I wanted to touch on that in our song High Exposure because it's very prevalent in the artists we see online." Okay, this is a group called Hollow Graves and their song High Exposure. All right, you like that? High Exposure by Hollow Graves. Or do you like this one? Song number 3 is by Annie Hart. And the renowned musician and composer Annie Hart is thrilled to announce her 4th full-length studio album, The Weight of a Wave, set to release on August 4th on Uninhabitable Mansions. Her minimal pop songs explore the fringes of new wave, pop, and ambient music. Hart's illustrious musical career took flight in 2003 when she entered electropop scene as a member of Au Revoir Simone. Their synthesizer-driven tunes were prominently featured in movie commercials and in Grey's Anatomy. Okay, here is a little bit of the song by Annie Hart called Stop Staring at You. The shame of it, I can go and make it 'cause you don't feel like taking it. Stop staring at you, baby. I am not afraid of it, but I'm never saying it. I can go and talk it if you don't feel like taking it. There you go, Annie Hart. Do you like that one? Or do you like song number 4? It's this one here. "Hi, Mike. We're Vicky Von Vicky, an indie rock band from Toronto. Following the release of 2 albums, we took a hiatus in the early 2000s. Now, after 2 decades, the band has regrouped for a triumphant return to stage and studio. Here is song number 4, Jealousy by Vicky Von Vicky. That song has a nice guitar solo. I wonder what the vocalist sounds like. All right, there you go. And our last song, and that was Vicky Von Vicky with Jealousy, is by a person named Ben. Is it Ben? Ben? No, Ari. Ari B. Ingber. I don't know where I got Ben out of that. I guess there's the B-E-N is in there somewhere in that name. But Ari B. Ingber is an American songwriter and performer, was born in Maryland and grew up in a Jewish immigrant family. His father was born in a displaced persons camp in Germany, where Ingber's grandparents met and married after surviving the Holocaust. As one of their first significant family purchases as Americans, they bought an accordion. Ingber's father took a keen interest in music, particularly the drums, and began performing as a backing band member for acts like Wilson Pickett and the Drifters in nightclubs in D.C. during his youth. Though Ingber's father eventually chose a more secure career, he passed his passion for music down to his children. So here is Ari B. Ingber, our last song today, and a song that he just released called Bear Lake. Let's listen. Ooh, so mellow. All right, which one of those did you like? If you forget what they were, go back and hit rewind, and you'll hear it because I announced them. Remember, I remember that. I announced every song, so I'm not going to do that again because this is a podcast. You can just rewind. But I will say the phone number one more time is 510-228-4640. And with more ways to reach me, it's A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MikesDailyPodcast.com. Email Mike now at MikesDailyPodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!